love journaling. I grew up observing this system without knowing that it's going to be a thing today. This is the sets of journals that we're going to walk through today. I love journaling. Over the years, I've used a variety of journals, and some of them I still use, and there are those that I've abandoned as well. I've been writing in notebook for as long as I can remember. I learned to read at the age of 4 and 5, I think, but I do remember that I started to write at the age of 5. And my mom basically homeschooled me when I was very young, and I've kept a notebook ever since. One of the reasons is because both of my parents are journalists. My dad's approach are structured. He has a planner that he changes every year, and he has an idea notebook where he jot down all his plans and projects ideas, and another notebook where he organizes the projects. And my mom's approach was more creative. She has scrapbooks, she has research notebook, she has a recipe, and she also have her daily planner. I grew up observing this system without knowing that it's going to be a thing today. So I have been journaling, I would say, since I have my first notebook when I was 5, in the age of 5 to 6, and I'm approaching 40 this year. So I guess it's about 35 years of journaling. So last year, in 2025, my journaling system has changed for me. It also the year that I realized that I have not abandoned pages or notebook, and it has worked very well. So this year, I wanted to simplify even further. Before I do that and move on to the new system, I do want to sit down with you and reflect on the system that has been worked for me, because those systems are the systems that actually help me to feel more grounded, to help me grow, to help me learn and gain knowledge. So I think it's still worth to talk about. All right, let's get into it. This is the sets of journals that we're going to walk through today, and you can see that I have a thing with pink color. I don't know why, but I love to write in pink journal. Yep. Anyway, let's start. Content journal. This is my YouTube journal, or content creation journal. I have this ever since I started in 2018. And before that, I have a separate notebook because I was the author of a blog. I was a blogger, but the blog was turned into private now. I don't use it anymore. I normally have a content journal, since I blog, since I also do YouTube. So all my ideas will go into this. All the scrappy ideas will be written here. Although I do have more structured and more organized digital journal on my Notion, but this is where it's filled with all the ideas that I may or may not have done them into live on YouTube or my Substack or my website. This works like subject notebook. If you're studying, you're probably familiar with this. We will keep an A4 or any size of notebook as a common place book to keep all of the subjects that we're learning. So I have one notebook for each of the topic, and that is the notebook that I will bring to school or lecture hall and take notes of what the lecturers say. And then I have a column where I put in my thoughts, my ideas about the topic, and then maybe some research paper that I would just clip into the notebook. These are something like that, because you can see that there's an extra paper that I kept in between the pages. It's just a place where I put all the ideas. The next one is my gratitude journal. So this is A6 and this is passport size, and this is the first gratitude journal that I have. Someone gifted this to me. I think it's my colleague. She thinks that I could use this as a place to reflect on my achievement and more towards a gratitude. My first entry and my first gratitude that written in this book was that my boyfriend, which is my husband today, he got confirmed that day at his work, because that time he was still working for an employer, and that was the day that he got confirmed. So I was grateful for that. And it's really nice to actually flip through all of the pages that you've written, to remember those days that life has not been that heavy as you thought. it was by looking at those reminder of the things that you've achieved and you've got. And this one I've started in 2024 is very gorgeous. I love the cover. It says today, tomorrow, whenever, Alhamdulillah. It means thank you Allah. So it's a good reminder. I started this 2 years ago in 2024 when I was reading a book called The Magic, I think. So this book is basically, people talk about how woo-woo this book is, but my husband and I was recommended to read this book, and I started reading them, and I realized that this book is actually not a woo-woo thing, but it's actually about gratitude, about how you actually slow down to notice all of the little things in your life and being grateful for it. And there's an exercise in those pages. All those exercises are about things that you are grateful for. Let me see. First entry in this notebook in 2024 was that I said, "For I'm still breathing till this very day. For the ability that you have given me to live my life and protect my family." So these are the exercise, and it's a bit more deeper than the general gratitude that I did, because it does help me to think through every layer of my life. And I think if you are having anxiety, you are in a phase of depressions or the bleak of time, I think it would be best for you to start reading this book, and or just as simple as having a gratitude journal. And I love having a gratitude journal. Next one, I have a brain dump journal, and I started this in 2025, last year. It's by Paper Ideas. I think it's a local brand, I'm not too sure, but I just found them on Shopee. I used to write everywhere, like on a whiteboard, on my digital notebook, on my iPad, iPhone, on a receipt, on a tissue, or somebody else's paper that I found on a table, whatever that is, whatever that I could grab, I would just jot down when the idea came, right? But at the end of the day, I would always lose those notes. And the toxic in me is that even though I have a notebook with me, but because those notebook, I wanted to keep it cleaned. I do not want it to be messy, so I do not want to write in them. Therefore, I write everywhere, and I will just slip through the paper in between the pages and look through it if I got time, or if I even remember to slip through the pages. So I started this dedicated brain dump notebook last year. This is where I sketch, this is where I plan, this is where I think or scribble anything that is unstructured. Mostly a lot of my mapping are drawn in this notebook. It's just how my brain works, and sometimes it's just words and words and words and reflections of things, and just feel more my map. And these are more my map when I was structuring my short story last November. And yeah, it become a quick space for me to capture thoughts before they actually disappear, and is a game changer. I don't know why didn't I actually have brain dump notebook before, but this is the year that I started. It's not too late. This is my reading journal. I started this also last year before, yeah, the year before, 2024, in January. I am a little embarrassed to talk about this one because I don't decorate them and make them look very aesthetically pleasing like most of the content on social media. Is like in the moment of reading those books, I would just mind map, I would just scribble down my ideas. Is because I don't write in the margin in my notebook. At least until last year, I didn't do that, and I don't want to mess up with my book. I love them and to keep them pretty. And yeah, so a lot of writing, a lot of, I don't know what I did here, but it's just a lot of words in them. Do I come back? Not really, because this is where I just do all the scrappy thoughts and put my thoughts together. All the structured one will then be transferred into a Notion app, which then turn into an article on my website. And I put a very well put together review on my website if you're interested. And this is my morning pages. I have started morning pages in 2020 or 21. The concept comes from The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, and I first heard about this book and this concept from Amy Landino and Ryan Holiday. And this book, the one I'm holding right now, is about 4 years old. Morning pages, as what I understood, aren't meant to be reread. And the book that I have, or the journals that I have before this copy, I don't think I've kept them. It's probably on top of my shelf, but because it's not meant to be reread, I don't really bother of the quality of the notebook, whether it can stay long with me. And I guess this is the best quality that I've got compared to the previous ones. And what you do is you write them in the morning. You spend the time before you do anything else, not even looking at your calendar or your social media. This is where you do all your rambles. Everything that affects your mental health will be kept into this notebook. I have been junk journaling since I was young. Back then, we don't call it junk journal. We don't have a fancy term. All I know is my mom called it scrapbooking, and I had two types of scrapbook. One is for travel, for mementos, where my mom would print out pictures and we collect some memories from the trip and put them down into a journal, like huge plastic covered journal. You just paste them down into that pages. And then another one is what she will make us, my sister and I, to sit down over the weekend on Sunday morning, like today, to read the newspaper, cut out all those articles together, put them down into a journal. And the purpose is to actually improve the language skills and also to learn about the subject. And we are supposed to write a short essay for her to mark on what we think about the articles. And we also have to read them out loud so that we can improve our pronunciation. So that are the kind of scrapbooking that I known for many years. And I abandoned those hobbies when I went to the universities and forgotten about it throughout my adult years. Until 2023, I bought this notebook thinking that I want to start a junk journaling again, but I was overwhelmed with the concept. I've totally forgot on how I've done it before because I watched too much ideas on YouTube and Pinterest and all kinds of platform social media for ideas. I abandoned them. And last year, I have a chat with my sister. She introduced me to a better approach of journaling using Traveler's Notebook Journal, which is smaller. And I didn't realize that actually just putting things together. I also have a small tweak, which I'm going to discuss about it in my separate video. It's very simple. You just, if you have a tea bag labels, you've got receipts from the things that you bought or stickers, there's no expectation. It could be anything. And you just paste them and then just write a nice memory of the events or the experience that you had. For this one, when I first started it, I started with a vision board. I cut out from the magazines and I wrote that down. And yeah, it didn't work, but the one that I've done last year was more prettier, I guess, more successful. It's nice to have a junk journal, a travel journal, whatever that is, because when you flip through it and you touch those pages again, it touch those little cutouts and the pieces from the events or the travels that you've had, it brings you back to the exact moment. I'm very sure there's a psychology behind this, but that's what makes it special. Yeah, start junk journal. All right, next one is my career journal. This book is falling apart because it's not really a very good quality one, but it is still nice to write in it. And I had this since 2016 when I first make a huge jump of my role. Before 2016, I work in HR department. I hated that job. I also have worked in multiple areas of call centers. I was miserable because I didn't like the job. I started this journal because I felt like my life was falling apart. I studied different thing and I ended up working in a different job and doing different thing. I thought that I wanted to work with animal or end up working with animals and the ocean, but I ended up working with people. So people are the worst. And when you are not prepared for that and you gotta work in a corporate when you're not ready for it, you will fall apart. And I started this notebook only about 5 to 7 years later to really take on my life back again and wanted to make sure that I will start looking for the job that will use my strength, that will fulfill me, even if I'm not going to be able to go back to work in the ocean with the cute animals anymore. So this book consisting of my career timeline, the skeleton of the future job that I wanted to get, my learning, the mistake that I've made, my breakthrough, the projects that I've done, the quotes from my mentor, the expectations, and my skill graph. I actually have a rating of my skill from before and after, and I take note of that every year. And I also have my one-to-one notes with my manager, problem solving skill, any other skills that I want to learn, I will put them into here. I will use this actively during the performance appraisal season or during the career chat with my manager. I started off with just a random scribble. I don't know what I was planning for, but I would just start writing them until at the end of the almost towards the end of the pages, I started to have some structure to it. And I would say that by having this book, it has got me to where I am today. And I even visualized that I was going to be a business analyst slash project manager. I am already in that path, and I feel like having a journal like this has got something to do with it. My spiritual journal, hang on. This journal is a spiritual and for mental reflection. It's very different than my morning pages actually, because I use them to reflect on the verses in Al Quran and also daily Stoic. I use this to translate, I use this to research, to find meanings, to put down my thoughts and turn them into an insights or actions that could be useful for my day to day. And I also use this book to reflect on the daily Stoic book, full of the old-time philosophers quote as well. And both of these books, the Quran and Daily Stoic, is the book that I always tend to and it helped me to ground myself spiritually and mentally. Yeah, so this is the book. I don't really use this every day, but when I have a longer thoughts when I recite Al Quran and also read Daily Stoic, I will jump on this book and write them down. All right, TN setup. So this is my TN setup. You probably have seen thousands of video about Traveler's Notebook by the Traveler's Company. This is my first ever Traveler's Notebook. I am so grateful that my sister has introduced me to this framework. I have been using this since last year January. This is 2026, but you probably have seen me showed you my TN setup for last year. That is the first year that I started my traveler's notebook journal, and I have also been using bullet journal for a long time, ever since I heard about from writer Carol, who wrote a book called Bullet Journal Method. I have been using an A5 journal, which is this size. This is the A5 size, but I realized that I was overwhelmed with the concept because all the lists that I have on my shelf today, not all of the pages actually being filled, and I also subtly or low-key have an anxiety to complete them because of the size, and also because I have this pressure of, like I said earlier, that I wrote everywhere but not on my bullet journal because I want to keep it clean. So that was the unnecessary pressure that I put on myself. But for some reason, when my sister introduced this to this concept of traveler's notebook, which have a smaller size of inserts in this, I felt less overwhelmed and less anxiety in writing in them. And within this setup, this is just a leather bound folder where you have all kinds of inserts, because I have so many journal with me and I love to have and change the context almost at every instant. So I have different inserts that I can keep and carry with me all the time. So I have my junk journal, I have my commonplace book, I have my bullet journal in this, and it has been working for me. We can talk about this specifically and flip through my journal some other time, but I would say that TN setup is a great setup for a beginner or someone who has a lot of context in their life and has a lot of interest in their life, I would say. And the last one, and this is my gaming journal. I don't know who would have a gaming journal, but I do have one. I'm sorry if it sounds weird, but I only started playing Animal Crossing about 2 years ago when I passed my PMP certificate. So I bought Nintendo as a gift for myself, and when I started playing that game, because I don't really play games, the open world felt very overwhelming. And because I love planning, I use the island as a blank canvas for me to design a dream island for me. And because I needed a plan, I need to draw out the maps before I just build up things and buying things in the game. I use this notebook. You can see that I actually plan out, I even sketch out the map that I purchased in the game, where I have a protected area, forest protected area. I have a park. I have a farm shop market. I have like academy center. I literally use that game to be creative in designing my dream world or my dream house. So this is the gaming journal that I have. I don't use this often, but whenever I need to change the layout of my island, I would come back to this journal and plan it out. This is my pocket journal, and I carry pocket journal. Also not very consistent. That is the reason why I wrote everything down when I needed to bring down my thoughts into any kind of paper that I could find. But pocket journal is something that I normally would have, ideally would have in my handbag. And the reason why I have this is because, as you can see, I have a list of journals that is so many, and all of them are bulky. Is no way it's gonna fit into my handbag. And having to carry this messy notebook with me is gonna help me to capture the ideas or thoughts that I needed to into the pages. So at one point, I just didn't want to ruin my main journal. So I would just use my pocket journal to jot down things, and then after that, I would transfer them into my prettier, a real journal. They are rarely finished. I have few more in my handbag. Whenever I go to the bookshop, and if I don't want to buy, if I tell myself I'm not going to buy a new journal to replace this, that means I would just get a smaller one that makes me happy. So this year I am focusing not to buy more notebook and just use whatever that I have and use every pages that are left in the notebook. So these are the journals that has shaped my past ecosystem. I have simplified everything this year. I do have some pages of this notebook that I will just continue to use, but I don't think I would continue in the same format anymore since I started to use travel notebooks, the standard size. And it's just nice to actually sit down here with you guys to reflect on the past ecosystem that has worked for me before I move forward with the new one. And it's so great to be able to acknowledge what had carried me here today. And I would just want to say journaling isn't about being aesthetic, like how you see on social media, and it's not always about productivity. Yes, you could have a planner for productivity, but journaling is more than that. Journaling is about memory, it's about clarity, it's about your growth, and sometimes it's also about survival. And I just want to say thank you for spending this quiet Sunday in a February with me. I will see you in the next one. Maybe we'll talk about the new ecosystem.